You've probably seen the headlines or heard the news. The National Association of Realtors was found liable in a class action lawsuit over real estate commissions. In October, a federal jury in Missouri found that the National Association of Realtors and many of the biggest residential real estate companies in the United States conspired to keep real estate commissions artificially high in violation of federal antitrust law. The parties agreed to settle, and Judge Stephen Boo granted preliminary approval to the settlement in March. Final approval is pending and set for November of this year. The settlement numbers are substantial. The National Association of Realtors agreed to pay $418 million, Keller Williams $70 million, Anywhere Real Estate, which includes Better Homes and Gardens, Century 21, Coldwell Banker, Corcoran, ERA, and Sotheby's, $83.5 million. RE/MAX, $55 million. Berkshire Hathaway, $250 million. Redfin, $9 million. Compass, $57.5 million. And Real, $9.2 million. Legal fees will be hundreds of millions of dollars. Who knows what the class plaintiffs will receive in the end? It's estimated over 21 million Americans could be part of the settlement class. On that note, if you sold a home in the United States within the last 10 years, you may qualify as a class member. You have until May 9th, 2025 to submit a claim. There's a website where you can explore your rights and options. I'll put a link in the description. Debating the merits of the case at this point is unproductive. What's done is done, and the residential real estate industry needs to transition to a more transparent, yet somewhat challenging new business model. And before we go any further, let me clarify some terms. All real estate agents are required to be licensed and overseen by a licensed real estate broker in the state where they do business. A realtor is an agent or broker that is a member of the National Association of Realtors. Not all brokers and agents are realtors, but all realtors are either licensed agents or brokers. To become a realtor, agents and brokers must pay annual dues to the National Association of Realtors and to their state and local realtor associations. Realtors voluntarily agree to abide by the Code of Ethics and Standards of Practice of the National Association of Realtors. Realtor members have access to the MLS, or the Multiple Listing System. The MLS is a powerful database enabling members to upload listings for sale, exposing all listings to all other participating members. Having access to the MLS is a compelling reason to become a realtor. In fact, many in the industry would say it's the main reason. NAR, or the National Association of Realtors, establishes the rules for more than 600 multiple listing systems in the United States. For years, all listings in the MLS had to include an offer of compensation to all buyer agents in the system. The rationale being agents had a right to know what their compensation would be prior to making any effort to sell any given listing. But the amount of that compensation being offered was determined by the seller and their listing broker. This blanket offer of compensation to buyer agents is the core issue of the lawsuit. Anyway, here's what's due to change this August. The example I'm using pertained to the state of Florida. Each state has its own regulations and documents governing real estate, but the basics are the same. So if you decide to hire a realtor to list and sell your home, you'll enter into a listing agreement with that realtor. The listing agreement outlines your asking price, terms you may accept, the length of the listing, showing procedures, etc. Of course, the agreement also includes the real estate commission to be paid when and if the property sells. Real estate commissions are negotiable, but for purposes of illustration, let's assume that you, as the seller, and your agent have agreed to a 5% total commission to be paid at closing. The listing agreement also clearly states what will be offered to a buyer's agent in the event they produce a ready, willing, and able buyer for your home. In this example, let's assume you and your listing agent agreed to offer half of the total, or 2.5%. When your listing is entered in the MLS, the agreed upon buyer agent fee is entered in the compensation section. And by the way, regarding the three categories, single agent, transaction broker, and non-representation, the distinction between these agency relationships is beyond the scope of this video, but is extremely important. Agency relationships vary from state to state. I'll do a follow-up video explaining each of these and what you need to know as a buyer or a seller in the state of Florida. Anyway, when an agent finds your listing in the MLS, the buyer agent fee is displayed in the compensation section. For now. As of August 17th, this will disappear. Now, this doesn't mean that you as a seller cannot agree to pay a buyer's agent if you see fit. It means an offer of compensation will not be displayed anywhere in the MLS. The reasoning behind this change is to prevent agents from the unethical practice of selectively showing or steering buyers toward or away from particular listings based on the amount of compensation being offered. As part of the settlement, NAR has mandated the following changes. Any offers of compensation in the MLS to buyer representatives will be eliminated. Also, buyer agents will be required to enter into a written agreement with the buyer prior to showing them listings in the MLS. The buyer agreement must include the amount or rate of compensation the agent will receive and how this amount will be determined. These changes are scheduled to go into effect August 17th, but again, the final approval of the settlement is set for November of this year. Also, the Department of Justice is reviewing the case and appears to be unsatisfied with the terms of the settlement agreement. DOJ lawyer Jessica Leal was quoted in a recent article in Risk Media. Leal called the NAR settlement an improvement, but implied it was not enough, saying, "We believe offers of compensation should not be made anywhere, but certainly not on the MLS." Leal also indicated that the DOJ was not currently supporting or opposing the NAR settlement. So there's a lot of speculation regarding the impact of these changes. Generally, the aim for a higher level of transparency between agents and buyers is a positive development. Under the old system, some buyers had no idea how their agent was getting paid or how much. Also, the seller's blanket offer of compensation being made to any buyer agent, regardless of their skill, experience, or even the relationship between the agent and the buyer, is a bit odd. Consider this. There are currently over 28,000 realtors in the Tampa Bay market alone, and about 1.5 million realtors in the United States. So basically, everyone knows a realtor, or at least knows someone who knows a realtor. The skill level, experience, and productivity among realtor agents varies widely, to say the least. Anyone with a high school diploma who can do basic math and pass a reading test can get a real estate license. These low barriers to entry contribute to the massive failure rate of agents. 75% of agents fail within the first year, and 87% fail and drop out within 5 years. Many industry insiders believe that the changes brought about by these suits will create an additional barrier to stay in the business, prompting part-timers and people who are giving real estate a try to bow out and not renew realtor memberships. Now, moving forward, buyer agent compensation will be determined by the buyer and their agent. In certain situations, the buyer may ask the seller to pay the buyer agent fee as part of their offer. And this is exactly how it's been done in commercial real estate now for years. Sellers and their agents will weigh out the benefits of an offer in its entirety and determine how it affects the seller's bottom line, along with the other needs and requirements of the seller. The residential real estate business doesn't operate in a vacuum. Transactions are infrequent, and I can tell you from experience, no two deals are ever the same. It's a cocktail of human emotions driven by personal life events, regulations, and ever-changing market conditions. There are offers and counteroffers. There can be multiple offers or no offers at all. And when a buyer and a seller come to an agreement, all the terms and conditions, including any agreed upon buyer's agent's fee, will be incorporated into a written contract and signed by all the parties involved. It is important to note that when a seller pays the buyer agent's fee from their proceeds, it becomes part of the total sale price. This in turn allows the buyer to effectively finance the buyer agent's fee as opposed to incurring an additional out-of-pocket cash expense. This can be especially critical to buyers who are approved for low down payment financing. Many popular mortgage products are available with a down payment of 10% or less. FHA loans only require 3.5% down, and VA loans for qualified veterans require no down payment at all. Also, seller concessions and contributions are fairly commonplace and effectively are rolled into the purchase price, especially in the case of first-time home buyers. Most mortgage loan products allow a seller to contribute anywhere from 2 to 9% of the sale price toward the buyer's mortgage closing costs, for example. In light of all the recent changes, FHA, Fannie Mae, and Freddie Mac have clarified that seller-paid commissions to buyer agents will not count against existing allowable seller contributions. But practically speaking, buyer agent commissions can only be financed if included in the sale price and paid by the seller. In other words, if a buyer agent commission is added to the sale price after the fact, it cannot be included in the loan amount. 1000 Watt, a real estate branding and marketing agency, surveyed consumers who recently bought or sold a home and asked them the following question. Currently, in most real estate transactions, the agent representing the buyer is paid about 2.5% of the home's sale price. This commission is determined by the seller and their agent before the home is listed for sale and comes out of the seller's sale proceeds at the close of the transaction. How do you interpret this? 35% responded, the buyer is paying nothing for their agent's services. 65% said the buyer is paying the 2.5% that goes to their agent because the buyer is the source of all the money in the transaction. When asked, do you think this is fair? 94% said yes, and 6% said no. In the final analysis, the buyer must be comfortable with the down payment and the total cost of ownership, including the monthly payment. The seller must be comfortable with the amount of money they receive net of expenses in a time frame that meets their needs. You could say the seller is selling the home and the buyer is selling the money. Now, what do you think? I'd like to hear from you. If you have a question or an opinion, please post it in the comments. Thank you for your time.